Hey, this is Dale from daledarley.com and Healing Osteoporosis Naturally. And one of the things that I find in this how do we treat our root cause journey is what kind of foods do we need to eat, what kind of nutrients in our foods. And let's say, for example, you discover that your root cause is caused by something that requires you to change your diet in some way outside of the normal treatment for osteoporosis. So, for example, I discovered that part of my root cause was because I'd had a trauma to my ribs, which ignited a bout of shingles. And then I got a number of shingles infections, which I have to be honest, I completely ignored. But what happened was that the shingles raised something called prolactin, which is a hormone in the pituitary gland. What that then did, aren't I a lucky girl, it lowered estrogen, and we all know that we need estrogen for our bones. In 2016, my estrogen levels were perfectly normal, and in 2018, they were practically non-existent with this high prolactin. And over a period of 6 months, I eventually found that shingles was the cause of the high prolactin. Well, there's certain things you need to do in terms of treating shingles. Now, you obviously need to raise the prolactin, but you also need to treat the shingles, because unless you treat the thing that is causing the problem remains. Now, one of the things is to make sure that you eat foods that are higher or have a higher ratio of lysine to arginine. So how do you know what those foods are? Well, we're actually extremely lucky. And the United States Department of Agriculture, and you might know the database as the USDA database, actually enables you to go through the database and put in a certain number of nutrients, well, 3. So in this next example that I'm going to show you, I have gone to this database and I've said I want to look at fruit and vegetables, because I don't eat any processed food, I don't eat any rubbish, I eat mostly fresh fruit and vegetables. I do eat some fish and I eat some tofu, but for this example I've chosen fruit and vegetables, and I've asked for lysine, arginine and calcium, because I want to be able to look at these foods and say, well, first of all, which are the foods that I want to eat? And I want to make sure that the foods that I do want to eat, the foods that I like, have got a higher percentage of lysine to arginine. And actually, I'd be quite happy to find out if they have a high level of calcium as well, because I want to get my calcium from my food. And what you can do with this database, if you so desire, is you can export it as a CSV file and then put that into Excel, and you could do a formula so it works out the percentages for you. Now, if you then wanted to say, well, okay, well, let's look at the same 2 food groups, but let's look at the ratio of, say, oxalate, phytate and calcium, then you could do the same thing, download it into a spreadsheet and then do some kind of comparison. I mean, that might be just a bit of a pain in the bum, having to download things into spreadsheets and do comparisons. But the idea is that, you know, if you do that, it makes life so much easier. So what we're going to do next is a little demonstration. And just to remind you that you can find me, I have a website called healingosteoporosis.com, and I also have a Facebook group called healingosteoporosis.com. It doesn't have a .com, it has a Healing Osteoporosis. I think I need to stop now and have a nice cup of tea and show you your demonstration and then just chill. So I'm Dale Darley, as I said. I'm from Healing Osteoporosis Naturally, and I do really hope that you get a lot of value out of the USDA database. This is a great database, the USDA database. And one of the things you can do is what's called a nutrient search. So in this example, one of the things that I need to do in terms of my osteoporosis, I've found my root cause, and my root cause is shingles, which has raised prolactin, which has decreased estrogen. So what I'm looking to do is eat more foods with lysine and which have a lower ratio of arginine in. So when I come into this nutrient search, I will look for each of the nutrients I want to look at. So in this example, I've got lysine, arginine, and I have calcium. Then I've chosen my food groups and I've said dairy, eggs, fruit, and vegetables. And then I just tell it to go. And what you can see is that the database returns to me it is a massive list. So it's found 952 foods. Now, there's several things that you can do. You can just jot down the foods that you want to eat. You can download what's called a comma separated variable file, and then you can open that in something like Microsoft Excel, or you can print it out as a PDF, which is going to be quite a few pages. But at least you can then go through and decide which foods you want. Now, if you're a bit of a whiz with something like Excel, when you've downloaded it, you can actually then do a calculation to look at the ratio of lysine to arginine. So you can do this on lots and lots of different kinds of nutrients, and you can also look at single foods and look at what foods are in particular items. So for example, if I want to go to the food search and I want to what do I want to look for? Actually, let's look at spinach, because there's something that I want to say about spinach. There's my raw spinach, and I tell it to go. Now, one of the things the database doesn't give me, it doesn't give me things like oxalates and phytates. So we know that spinach, although it's very high in calcium, what we also know, because we'll be looking at other things around our foods, such as oxalates and phytates. So we can have a look and see what other things are in the spinach. If we chose that we wanted to actually eat spinach on an occasional basis, in fact anything that has oxalate in, on an occasional basis in a meal that is away from our high calcium meal, we can easily come into this database and see what other kind of vitamins and minerals are contained within that particular item. And it's great because we've got per 100 grams, a cup, a bunch, a leaf, and I don't know whose package they're selling, but you can see, you know, how much potassium there actually is in spinach. So really, depending on what your dietary needs are, this particular database is absolutely brilliant in enabling you to come and for free search out various bits and pieces.